Ladies and gentlemen, it is Tuesday, so you know what that means. It's going to be a league change. We are going to be going over in today's video Great League Remix, but there is also Halloween Cup, but Great League Edition. So Halloween Cup was a part of this last week, but it was Little Cup. But yeah, obviously I don't want to play like a Little Cup, but I will play a Halloween Cup variant. But today we're going to be going over the best teams for Great League Remix. So let's go ahead and get into it. But first, we're actually going to look at the ban list because NIANTIC actually updated this for this season, which is crazy because they actually haven't done this before. Usually they're a season behind, and then the meta is obviously very different after they've made a bunch of move changes. So like if we saw a ban list that was like Gligar, Metacham, who knows, these types of weird things, it'd be like wild. Whiscash. Yeah, that's last season. So this season, these are the 20 new Mon that are going to be banned. Actually, it looks like 21, which is interesting. I'll just go over them really quick, I guess, if you're just listening on audio. It's going to be a Alolan Sandslash, Wigglytuff, Dugong, Marowak. Oh man, Shadow Marowak, and all the Shadow variants of these as well, by the way. For Alligator, Azumarill, Jumpluff, Quagsire, Dunsparce, Gastrodon. Oh, I guess it is 20. They're just showing both of the Gastrodon East and West forms for regions. Drapion, Superior, Ferrothorn, Mandibuzz, Greninja, which is interesting. Is Greninja really being used that much? It's top 20. Diggersby, Talonflame, Malamar, Toxapex, and Clodsire. So those are the banned Mons, and we have everything else to use besides those. So let's get into the teams. All right, first team is, I always have to put a Double Dark team on there. This is going to be Cresselia Double Dark with Moonblast specifically, a lot of Mon where we could really use the Future Sight are going to be banned, like Clodsire and Toxapex. Those are going to be banned out, so we really don't need that. Plus, we're going to need that Moonblast coverage for some of the Dark types, and just good neutral damage overall. We also have Pangoro and Guzzlord for our dark types. So Guzzlord, we do have Sludge Bomb on here. PvPoke does say this is still the way to go, even though Azumarill has been taken out. There are still going to be fairies in this meta. There's actually probably going to be a lot with Clefable and even what's his name, Wigglytuff. So those are going to be ones to really look out for. If you know how to play Double Dark, this is going to play very similar to that, the old Scrafty days. You're not going to have as much offensive pressure from fast attacks with the Cresselia versus something like the Shadow Hypno, but you're going to have a much more impactful in-game than Scrafty would normally. But you're also going to be a lot less tanky than Scrafty is, to say that. Pangoro just gets absolutely crushed by fighting attacks. Machamp is in this meta. That is one thing to look out for. Just getting Pangoro onto the right Mon. So if they safe swap into something because they lost the lead and Pangoro can beat it, definitely going with that. Otherwise, your safe swap is going to be Guzzlord. And if you have a neutral-ish to bad matchup in the lead, you're going to want to safe swap the Guzzlord in. Just a normal ABB thing I'm saying here, which is strong in the 2 times weak in the back to something, and you want to basically bait out any of the Fairy Mon or even possibly fighters that are in the meta. Again, Machamp's in the meta, and Fairy Mons are definitely in the meta. Things to really look out for: Galarian Weezing is going to be a big one in this cup. I think a lot of people are actually going to be running Shadow, so definitely going to be on the lookout for that. Cresselia doesn't have very good moves against it because we aren't running the Future Sight. But I still think Moonblast is the way to go. But catching you here in the middle of the video, definitely subscribe if you haven't. Just take a second, hit it. All right, back to the video. You're going to be pretty weak to Galarian Weezing here. Another thing, and note that a lot of the Galarian Weezings are going to be running Play Rough rather than Overheat. So yeah, another thing to look out for is Frostlass. Now, a long time ago, Frostlass was a big hitter in these limited cups. We haven't seen it in a while because limited cups have been kind of weird, or even in Open Great League specifically, like they're banning things out from so long ago that the actual Great League remix ends up being just Open Great League. But I actually do think we will see Frostlass a little bit here. It's going to be super effective against Cresselia with Shadow Ball, and then super effective with Powder Snow against Guzzlord, as well as resisting the fast attacks from Pangoro. Since it is a ghost type, it is going to be double resisting the... Well, technically, it's going to double resist with the ghost type and then taking extras or taking super effective damage one times because of the ice type against fighting types. So it ends up resisting all the fighting moves. But your Night Slash is still going to be super effective. All right, let's go on to team number 2. It's going to be Whiscash with a double poison backline. So if you don't know the typings of Galarian Weezing, definitely Fairy and Poison. So definitely doesn't have any poison moves, especially we could technically use Sludge as one of its moves, but it doesn't really need that in this type of meta. Play Rough is going to be doing just fine against the other fairy types. Definitely don't want to use Brutal Swing against those. Notice that we have Shadow Whiscash in the front here, so Mudshot was nerfed at the beginning of this season, so right now it is nerfed. But Whiscash still has a lot of bulk to it, it being the Shadow form. Scald still hits pretty hard. Mud Bomb is going to be very nice against other poison types. And yeah, it's going to be generally pretty neutral against a lot of this cup, so going to see a resurgence of Shadow Whiscash, which is interesting and pretty cool. Obviously, yeah, it did get nerfed a little bit at the beginning, a decent amount at the beginning of the season to push it way outside the meta. Again, another ABB comp, you want to pull out the steel types or the ground types. And yeah, that's how you're going to play this team out. Things that you're going to want to avoid or that are pretty big core breakers. It's going to be Swampert, which is pretty strong into all three. Definitely can't take all three of them out itself. So that is something to note. Quillfish, while it gets hit for super effective with the Earthquake, it does resist the Hydro Cannon there, so going to be a little bit of a bait here. And Swampert also was affected by those Mudshot nerfs at the beginning of the season, so it does take a little bit more time to get to those moves. And then something that I think is actually going to be pretty decent in this meta as well is a Ringaroo. Trailblaze is going to be super effective against the water types. I do think that this is going to be a big time water meta. It's going to be a water and Galarian Weezing meta if I was to make some pretty bold predictions. So there aren't that many Grassmon in this cup. There is Tropius, there is Whimsicott, but Trailblaze on a Mon that can basically up its attack and then do different types of attacks can really give you a lot of coverage, which is going to give you so much. So I do think a Ringaroo will be a decent safe swap in this meta, and I think you will see it a lot. All right. Third team, going to be the Whimsicott that I was just talking about. So Whimsicott, Pachirisu, and Walrein. Walrein also making another comeback to this limited meta. It's been nerfed. I can't remember exactly what got nerfed. I think Icicle Spear and Powder Snow got nerfed. Let me know in the comments below if that's wrong. I think Earthquake got nerfed last season as well. But yeah, just over the last like 5 or 6 seasons, Walrein's experienced those nerfs since it was the top dog in the meta like a year and a half ago. So good to see it back after so long being away. It is still fine. It's, again, just like the Whiscash, it's fine. And in a limited meta where a lot of the top dogs are being banned out, it's going to be the new, like... I'm not sure if Walrein's going to be tier 1 in this meta, but it's close, if not. So we'll call it tier 1.5. Another interesting one here is also Pachirisu. One thing to note about Pachirisu is that it is an XL Mon, so this one might be pretty rare. It's going to be very rare in the meta, but it might be rare if... What am I trying to say? Like, if you don't have one, it makes a lot of sense because it's going to be a level 50 Mon. It is region locked to the northern hemisphere, but like super far north. I know it's in Canada, but I don't know if it's in anywhere else. In like, I don't know, Russia, whatever is top of the other continents. So yeah, it obviously has some vulnerabilities, being all electric. And I did say it was going to be a big water meta, but there's also there aren't that many grass There are a couple grounds, so things like Whiscash you're definitely going to want to stay away from. Basically, if you find a good matchup for Pachirisu, go in there and destroy it. Just beat up the Walreins, beat up, all the water types in this meta. This team is a little risky, I will say. I think it is an ABC type team. You have a water, electric, and a grass. They don't necessarily share any immunities or anything like that, but something like grass could be a problem for this team as well. Specifically, like Tropius would be interesting. We'll go over to the counter picks here, though. We're going to say, steel types. That makes a lot of sense. So the Registeel is going to be pretty good against Whimsicott, even though it can only hit it for resisted damage no matter what it throws. It's just not taking any damage on the back end, and really 2 Focus Blasts is going to do a lot to this attack-heavy Pokemon of Whimsicott. The Walrein meta used to not be the worst. It would basically just go into the 2 shields, and you're going to do some amount of damage, and then you'll get KO'd as the Walrein, but you're going to still get Earthquake off. And then the Pachirisu matchup is actually okay for Pachirisu. I mean, you're going to win, but just by barely, I think. If you ever get that attack drop, though, that's going to suck. Another thing in this that is a core breaker to this team is going to be the Weezing. Again, this can be Shadow or regular Galarian Weezing. It's just going to be so good against the Whimsicott, and then it's going to have neutral play against everything in the back. So, the only thing you have to be worried about is the Earthquake, but you're always going to have an energy lead. And it's just going to be like neutrally good against the whole team, plus super effectively good against Whimsicott, which it hardwalls Whimsicott. All right, 4th team here, ABB Steel. So one thing I have to note here is that it plays almost the same as like the old Grass Hole teams, which got super nerfed, which would technically have Bastiodon in the front and then like a Grassmon and maybe a second Grassmon in the back. This is like the reverse of that, where a lot of your fast attacks are going to be doing a decent amount of damage. But I'm not running Razor Leaf, because Razor Leaf did get nerfed, I'm pretty sure. Let me know in the comments if that is wrong, but I'm pretty sure it got nerfed last season. So going to be running that Air Slash. It's going to be good against those other grass types. Going to be good against something like Abomasnow, but obviously like Whimsicott, as well as having Leaf Blade and just being a grass type in general for all the water types if you're scared of something like the Whiscash. And then it's not the worst. I mean, it is pretty bad against Walrein, but if a Walrein switches into you, you're going to have that energy advantage. You can get to the Leaf Blade, which is still going to do super effective, but obviously if they switch into you, you have these 2 steel types in the back. Carbink going to be that mon, the same as like Pangoro in Pachirisu before. You want to put it in a good matchup. If they safe swap into something like Walrein, throw this guy in there. Rock Throw, Rock Slide, going to be good enough. You don't want to risk having a bad matchup for the Carbink in the back. And then the real, I guess, showcase of this team is going to be the Shadow Steelix. We saw a bit of this last season, I think, in Jungle Cup. It's always been pretty good in in the limited metas that it's been a part of. It just has the ability to flip switch, so I say so easily, but at the cost of shields. So you're always going to be able to get that Psychic Fangs off, get the Crunch off. These are debuff type moves. Psychic Fangs obviously 100% chance, and Crunch 50% chance. And then Dragon Tail with the shadow damage going to be doing a lot. Its typing is really good. Things you got to watch out for those, and then like Pangoro could be rough against your back line. Oh, well, against Steelix. But it's not even that bad. You can still shield through that matchup. You can shield through the Carbink. I mean, Carbink is just fairy type, so. All right, things to look out for. Again, almost like the first team, Steel type is going to be pretty tough for this team. We have a Grass lead, which is not going to be doing much. You technically, with Leaf Blade, you are doing neutral against Bastiodon, but you're taking super effective with the Smackdowns. And then Bastiodon just is not taking any sort of damage from Carbink. Obviously, Bastiodon into Steelix, I think the Bastiodon's still favored here. You have Flamethrower for super effective damage. Now the Smackdown rock move, not going to be doing much. But yeah, Registeel going to be doing neutral against Tropius with Zap Cannon. Going to be doing neutral against, and resisting all of its moves. Going to be doing neutral and resisting all the moves to Carbink. And then technically Crunch is neutral against you, but you have Focus Blast against the Steelix, which is going to be super effective. All right, fifth and final team here is going to be Whiscash Double Ice. So you can also substitute some of these out for something like Frostlass, but if you remember at the beginning of the video, I was saying Ice not really a type that is used that much, that often. In these limited metas where some things are taken out, you can definitely see some of the Icemon shine. The one really big problem with Ice is it only resists itself, so it's a pretty bad typing in general, but in these limited metas you might not be affected by certain things, and also you have subtypings. So we have Water subtyping for Walrein, and then the Grass subtyping for Abomasnow. Another thing to note here is that if you know any of my videos, I usually don't use Abomasnow, but I do note that Abomasnow is always good in these types of metas. It's a little bit frail, but it has a lot of just damage output and play against all of those things. Another thing to note as well is in the end game, if you have a Mon going into, let's say I have the Walrein in the very back, but I have a move stored on Abomasnow and they are down to 1 Mon, I can always throw the Icy Wind into it and then swap to my Walrein or Whiscash or whatever's alive still. Or maybe it's just Abomasnow alive, but you're going to keep that debuff on that Mon for the rest of the game, which can be very good and advantageous. So let's go to the Core Breakers. All right, Core Breakers are actually going to be some of the grass types. Another thing to note here that isn't listed here is going to also be the Oranguru. But it's going to be a little bit more neutral into these. Obviously, it's very good against Whiscash, though. Yeah, the Grassmon are going to technically be super effective against double super effective against Whiscash, and then super effective against Walrein. But Walrein has a little bit of fight back to it, a little bit of bite with those walrus fangs, because it is an ice type. So it's going to be double super effective against Tropius, and then super effective against Whimsicott. And Whimsicott is very attack weighted, so that's going to be doing a lot of damage. But they could just, take out the Whiscash because of a win on their side, and then have a little bit of extra energy to throw those super effective moves into something like the Walrein. And then Tropius technically has super effective moves with Air Slash and Aerial Ace as well against the Abomasnow because it is a grass type, but you are still doing double super effective to it. So technically, while you win these matchups, it's more about energy that they could gain on Grassmon that will end up doing a lot of damage to your team, not necessarily the straight one-on-one matchups. All right. So that's my 5, I guess, best favorite teams going into this cup. It's going to be a crazy cup. The actual Mon that needed to get banned got banned, and this is the first time that's ever happened. I think this will be a very interesting cup. I really hope that not seeing the top 20 meta choices is going to reinvigorate, I guess, a lot of people into playing this one. So without further ado, I'm going to let y'all go. If you like the video, hit the thumbs up. If you want to let me know what teams you're running, definitely just let me know in the comments below, and I will catch you in the next one. Subscribe. Hey, thank you for watching the video, and if you want to continue to support me, definitely click that subscribe button. You'll see any content coming out, and if you want another video on this same league for some more tips and tricks to other teams, check that video out right there, and I'll see you in the next one.